get a seat. We'll get started here. You can't hear me? Louder? They're sitting now. That was the most behaved, everybody sat down and got quiet I've ever seen. Thank you very much for doing that. That was awesome. I'm Andy Rayum. I'm the Public Works Director. I'm filling in for John Coleman. He's the project manager for this project. Couple quick things. We have extra copies of the handout. Does anybody need extra copies? Can we hand those out for us? If you put your hand up, she'll bring them to you. There's snacks in the back if you didn't see them, so feel free to grab those. We'd rather you guys eat it all, if possible. This project is the Downtown Streetscapes Plan, so it's kind of an obscure, we've changed the name so many times, I have to keep recalling what we call it. But basically, it's an opportunity for the community to envision what you would like to see in the northern portion of Commercial Avenue, basically 12th Avenue North. And so we did a competitive process. We contracted first 40 feet to facilitate the process with the community, and at the end there will be a plan that's a vision for that portion of Commercial Avenue. So all the dry and city stuff has now been presented. I'm going to hand it over to the consultants. Please enjoy yourself, and we'll be here. There's a few other there's council members. That's always a good thing. I saw Ryan Walters. He's here. There we go. This Colton or Moulton, and yeah, my craft. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on names. That's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now. Here we go.
You're doing great. Thank you, Andy. You keep that because we may want to pass it around to folks as we move along. I'm Jason Graff with First 40 Feet. I'll talk a little bit about what the heck that means. We're not a shoe company, but a little bit louder. Yeah, I'll be right at this. First 40 Feet is the company we're with. I'm Jason. Welcome. Glad to see everyone tonight. We're going to be giving about a 30 to 40 minute presentation, but it's interactive. I talk a lot, but we have questions and feedback that we want to hear from you while we're sort of exploring what we've learned about Commercial Avenue and the areas around Commercial Avenue that really bring people and create that experience of being downtown in Anacortes. So you're going to see a little bit of our perception of what we see as outsiders, what we've learned talking to a few people, and this is really starting the conversation about Commercial Avenue, and I'll get into what extents of that we're exploring Commercial Avenue and the downtown. So, as I mentioned, this is an interactive presentation. There's a QR code on the paper in front of you, or you can hit the screen up here. What that allows you to do is see each slide as I progress through. And then we have a series of questions that are going to pop up. There's like 18 of them. And we'll give you time to answer some of those questions directly with your phone if you want to, or the paper copy that's in front of you is following the same order as the questions that pop up on the screen. So we'd love for you to be a part of this and not just hear this guy yapping all night. So first question is, we're curious, like, how are you connected to Anacortes? Do you own a business? Do you live here? Do you have both of those? We'd love to get a sense of who's in the crowd. So there'll be some pauses here while we're answering questions, and I'm used to standing around. Great. Okay. Yeah, if you feel comfortable and you want to write on that sheet, that would be awesome. Yeah, you can use that one too. Like, there should be question number 1, and it's too loud or missing. Am I going in and out?
Right.
Thank you. Super. We'll go back and forth here. Introductions. I mentioned I'm Jason Graff. I'm being assisted by James Brackenhoff. He's with First 40 Feet, and Mitchell. They're up here in the front next to Andy and Sydney. We're really excited to be here. We had a chance to be here during Open Streets. So we got a sense a little bit of how that functions, and we talked to a few folks during the day on that visit. We were really excited. First 40 Feet is not a shoe company, but in fact we're architects and urban designers and landscape designers. But our canvas is buildings and the streets that inhabit the space between buildings, and so we're constantly looking at the first 40 feet up a building, we're constantly looking at the first 40 feet out, and that intersection of the two is really where all of us experience cities and downtowns and urban environments, so we're sort of hypersensitive to that intersection, and we thought that would be a great name for a company. You might as well say what you do. The project here is focused on primarily Commercial Avenue between 12th and 3rd. And so trying to understand the function and health of this great downtown street, but also knowing the experience of being a downtown Anacortes, this sort of historic portion, includes other elements such as the marina, Cosland Park, the port to the north. And we're always thinking not just about the great street that you have here, but the other things that attract folks into the downtown. This idea of people who visit or people who live here spending an extended amount of time in the downtown area is really a focus. And we know there's a variety of different things happening, new projects coming online, spaces you already use, and how do we sort of pull that together in a blanket and really think about the downtown as a larger experience that uses Cosland Park, has great access to the marina and fun things going on there, thinking about the port as a neighbor to the north, and the connections, the pathways that you use to and from your homes into downtown, how you get to downtown is also important. So we want to think about walking and biking within like a 5-minute radius of downtown. So we're hypersensitive on a couple of different levels. Our timeline is here, so we're at this point in October where we've been gathering existing conditions, trying to learn about the businesses on the street, the quality of the buildings that inhabit that, how's the marina functioning, what are the projects that are potentially online, where are you investing in bike routes and great streets, and so we're learning about a variety of different projects that likely need to come together to tell a really great story about the next 5-10 years of downtown, and we're really focused on some projects within kind of a 5-year window. So we're not looking at a 40-year plan here. We want some things that we can all be proactive and begin initiating early. Some of that is like finding a great downtown public space, maybe thinking about parking, maybe thinking about some key connections. So we'll be exploring those in the second round once we learn a little bit about what's going on currently and the current conditions, and we'll come back in February with some preliminary concepts for streetscape enhancements, potential connections, some public gathering spaces, a variety of things that we should consider for the downtown. When we look at the city, and we work in towns all over the country, we're currently working in Battleground, Washington. They have a great little Main Street. Downtown Vancouver, we're rebuilding 10 blocks of Main Street there. It's awesome to be in Anacortes. This is kind of like, you're kind of one of those gems that you're sort of in that spectrum of, I've worked in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it felt like such an extreme, and I feel like Anacortes sort of fits in that realm just because of the setting and where you all sit in the Puget Sound and around the San Juan. So we're super excited. And the things we think about are what helps define the identity of your community, and we learn that from how you talk about yourselves, some of it what we perceive as we come in, land, water, those are preeminent. Mount Baker, all these things kind of define the edges, but there's all these spaces and people who inhabit the community, and we can learn a lot about how you see yourselves and how you want to project yourself to the world. Place gets into what's the quality of the environment of being on Commercial Avenue, being downtown, being close to the marina, being close to Cap Santa. All these spaces are really a part of being in this place, and so we want to make sure that those are well connected and a part of the experience of being downtown. Connected is thinking about how do you capture that audience to Commercial Avenue. We hear a lot about people on I-20, they're just taking the elbow and bypassing downtown. We're really kind of more hyper-focused on how do neighborhoods and people close in come into downtown through walking and biking. So we'll look at a variety of different fronts in terms of the broader visitor, but I think we're really attuned to folks who live here and how you get to not only Commercial Avenue, but other destinations close by, like the library, Cosland Park, other things. And then partnerships are going to be a part of how we explore the different variety of entities that are contributing to the success of downtown. So the city is a major partner. They've helped initiate this process. Your city council is really excited about the potential for the work that can come out of this. The Downtown Association obviously has skin in the game. We've been talking to the tourism department from Skagit Valley, and so there's a number of people who are going to contribute over time to the success, and we're trying to build that coalition of folks so that we can move on something pretty exciting. So I mentioned our first perception as we cross the bridge and we're coming in to Anacortes, and the things that we see and notice. Certainly the port and the water and the land, these are things that are quite evident when you come into the community. Open streets gave us another layer, because now we're like, oh my gosh, they've shut down the street. People and kids and families are hopping up and down. There's a pedicab running kids up and down the street. And it says a lot about the community, so we were excited to see that. But we're also curious sort of what words sort of capture how you feel about this place. And so we'll get into some of these questions posed to you so we can learn a little bit more. But here, what words best capture the identity of downtown Anacortes? These are great. It's a mixed bag, as it should be. As we look ahead, and there's opportunities to think about things that you might want to see enhanced or new things that would be great additions to downtown, we're sort of curious if you can project out 10 years, how do you want people to describe downtown Anacortes? Gritty, I like that. Coming from Portland, I would love affordable too. Jeez Louise. If I move on, I think you can still continue to answer, but I will sort of keep running through here. As we think about this idea of place, ensuring Commercial Avenue still stays this vibrant corridor, it's good for us to kind of do an inventory of how well it's doing today, and maybe where some nooks and crannies have room for improvement. But this idea of just an exciting, active, edge-to-edge storefront, from 11th to 3rd, that's a big stretch to do, but I think what we're finding is there are 4 or 5 blocks that are really just singing, and the idea is to strengthen that and then continue to expand that a little bit further south, a little bit further north. And as we think about Commercial Avenue, we should also think about some of those key intersecting streets that link Commercial Avenue to other amazing areas, like 7th, which is a great connector to Cosland Park, a great connector to the depot and the public market, and other streets, for instance, that connect to the waterfront. And again, the idea is to how to expand the overall experience of being downtown. This is my favorite question, because just about every community I go to In Portland, Oregon, we have like one spot that pretty much everyone knows. If you want to meet someone, or especially someone from out of town, you go to Pioneer Courthouse Square, because there's a ton of things to do there and it's easy to find. But in every community I go to, there's always a couple spots that pretty much uniformly, 1 to 3, that everyone says like, yeah, that's kind of the spot. And you may not go there every day, but it's certainly identifiable. So I'm curious on Commercial Avenue where those key places might be. Looks like there's a lot. There's only allowed to be 3. Definitely food brings us all just about anywhere. We go to parking lots to eat at carts. I mean, we just don't, as long as there's food, we're excited. Ghirardelli is doing well. We'll be giving away free t-shirts for Ghirardelli later. This has all been sponsored by Ghirardelli, so this is perfect. Pelican. Well, thank you. That's awesome. Now I know. We've been exploring the number of the types of uses up and down the street. So again, from sort of 11th to 3rd, what's the mix? How many retail shops, food and beverage, commercial services, things like spas and real estate offices and those types of things that are kind of a part of like a working downtown. Some communities tend to lean toward a tourist destination. Others tend to be kind of more robust local. They have a variety of different things. So we're curious as we kind of survey up and down the street what that mix is like. And I think it's interesting what we find here, that it's pretty much a 1/3 mix between retail, which is great, a lot of foot traffic, and these are unique retailers. These aren't chain retailers on Commercial Avenue. Food and beverage is always, we know, a great attractor in bringing people to the street, so about 1/3 of your uses are around that category, and then your commercial services sort of round that out. So you get a sense that it's pretty healthy. What we're also interested in is where are those sort of activating uses kind of aggregated? Because sometimes if things are really spread out, you kind of have a pulse point down at this portion of the street, and then a few blocks up, there's some fun stuff, and maybe around the corner, but it's not sort of together. But what we're seeing is between 5th and around 8th, there's quite a few things happening, not only in the types of uses, but the quality of the buildings and the environment and the streetscape, all really contributing to what I'd call kind of a pulse point on the street. And what this means is over time, as you think about additional uses that you might want to bring into the street, thinking about sort of filling in those gaps where maybe that energy and pulse point isn't happening, or the types of uses that can build what we call clusters. Some downtowns are built around sort of home furnishings that are arranged from like antiques up to more sort of finer interior type things and artwork, and so you get that as sort of a destination in what might be called a cluster. But I think we're seeing a really good mix here. Yes, ma'am? Yeah, the commercial, that tends to be more in the service base. So I mentioned like a hair salon or a barber or an accountant, things that don't necessarily have a ton of foot traffic, but you know, they're businesses nonetheless in the downtown. Yeah, it could be a copy shop, that kind of thing. And we're always curious, you know, you've lived here a long time, and sometimes we're like, I've kind of done everything on Commercial Avenue. Boy, I wish there was this place or that place or maybe another use. So I'm curious if there's other things that you might want to see added to that mix of what there is there today. And we've met a few folks, certainly this idea of a creative arts district downtown has got a lot of legs, and we're seeing a lot of support around that. And that's pretty evident. I mean, the Bill Mitchell murals, or that wall art, is really exciting and interesting. And so we often see entertainment as a gap in communities. I think the loss of the event center is kind of unfortunate, but it's great to hear that may be coming back online. And I think that's a real plus if and when that project gets going. So thanks for sharing that. We're also curious, you know, how often do you visit downtown? It may be daily, weekly. during events. I have to say, once I started having kids, I stopped going downtown as much, so it kind of takes the fun out of things a little bit. I mean, I love them. They're great. But I miss going out to a decent meal and some entertainment, but I don't have family close by, so why am I talking about this? Time to move on. Geez, this guy's like, here, take a bag, you'll be fine. Go buy some stuff. Your kids aren't with you today. Always curious what would make you spend more time downtown. Again, that's kind of the barometer. Like a lot of downtowns can keep you there for about an hour and a half, usually around food, but what are the other things that get you there? Maybe you want to walk to the marina. Maybe you want to walk on a trail. People like walking. That's what they like about downtown is I can go, I can walk around, I can bump into friends or meet friends. It's like we forget how awesome that is. We've also been talking a bit about what are other towns doing, like La Conner and Mount Vernon, and what's bringing people to those spots. And I think it's good to talk about what you like about those things as well as what you love about here too, because I think, it's a competitive environment and we should be thinking about what people are doing well. The central gathering space, the red bar that's popping up, we are really excited to explore that idea. And there's been several already sort of surfacing about this kind of central space where people can hang out, and it's always a fun exercise to figure out where that space might be, how big it is, what are the edges around it, because activity around it is really, really important. And as we think about opportunities for bringing new uses, we did notice that most of your storefronts are pretty full. So there's not a ton of room directly on Commercial Avenue. Now there may be opportunities on side streets, that's awesome. Sometimes expanding that retail, commercial, dining, entertainment around the corner creates sort of loops back into Commercial Avenue, and certainly thinking of the connection between commercial and R or Q and R is really important. But these vacant and underutilized sites may be opportunities to bring in new uses. That's the point. And one thing we're learning is that a housing project is coming online on 3rd Street and Commercial, so up near the port. And that's awesome. We met with the Housing Authority today and excited to hear about a number of new units potentially coming onto the street. Having people living in downtown is great too. It creates that 18-hour environment. There's people there. It's awesome when there's that type of activity late into the evening. And then I noticed at 10th and Commercial, there's a half block that's vacant. I think a lot of people are calling it the Pit. So we're sort of curious what goes in the Pit. We were working in Astoria and they have a pit too. So that's a thing. Everyone's got a good pit. And then of course the port, large redevelopment potential, and we have some plans that we've seen around that property. I think that's really promising. And as we look at the port property, the master plan area that you see there in blue, and the Anacortes Farmers Market that's sort of in between that potential redevelopment area and then your core area, it's like, wow, this is looking like we got a hinge here and some things happening, and wow, this is something we want to learn more about. We have a meeting with the port tomorrow. This is what I've been able to find online, scouring through to find as much as I could about what they're thinking in terms of redevelopment. And so bringing an event center, woo, yes, love that. So glad, and it's close to downtown, it's right on the marina, and then additional development with potentially a hotel and additional commercial sites. This could be a really great opportunity. And it's sitting right next to the public market and the depot, and so, wow, what a great sort of group of things coming together, and I think the potential for this is exciting. I'd also love to see the Tommy Thompson Trail extend up through this and around the marina and connect to the gazebo. That would be a great win too. I joke that I'd love to have a bell that you ring, like once you've done the whole trail and you hit the end, you ring a bell so everyone will hear, oh yeah, they did it. They did the 5-6 mile bike ride, whatever it is. So we'll learn more about that. We've also been looking at the great public spaces that are in and around Commercial Avenue, and of course the marina is pretty exciting because who doesn't love boats and who doesn't love to walk near the water and see the skyline beyond. And Cap Santa Park is close by as well. These are not far at all if you want to take a 10-minute walk over there. And then there's some spaces sort of remnant up in the port area, and we know the port's like trying to do their thing, but there's a beach up there, and so we're sort of curious maybe how that gets connected into downtown. I think Cosland Park is super awesome. Like when you look at that building and just where that space is nestled in the middle of the neighborhood, you see just this tremendous asset. And I know there's a lot of programming that goes into that park, and so you're thinking, oh wow, we've got the marina on one side, we got Cosland on another. These are really great assets that we can build from. Kiwanis Waterfront Park is another great space because people are going to want to venture out. They're going to come downtown and then they're going to wander north, they're going to wander east, and you have a lot of great things that are fairly well connected. But what we haven't seen is sort of that downtown public gathering space. If you've been to Santa Fe, New Mexico, they have the plaza. Portland has their Pioneer Courthouse Square. And they don't have to be large, they can be a variety of different sizes, but when they're strategically located, man, it's that place where you go to and there's activity around it, and it sort of is that point where you can start and finish, and we're going to explore that. Walla Walla did something interesting where they took a half block or a block of a side street and they made that their public space. They started out doing it just temporarily, like, okay, let's close it down for some events or on the weekend, and they found that it was so successful and the businesses saw value in it that they kind of made it a permanent thing. And other communities explored that too. In Portland, we've been closing down like a block in certain areas to create gathering spaces in neighborhoods, for instance. And some of them are temporary and they go away, and the ones that people love, they're keeping them. So I think there's an opportunity for us to explore that. We're curious from your perspective too, what are the value of gathering spaces? And you may have some great ones now that like, hey, we just need more of those. Or, maybe there's some other types of spaces that would be interesting to explore. Or maybe you're tired of parklets, and you can make a note on that one too. So, I'm not originally from Portland, but I moved there from Kentucky. But one thing that always amazed me is no one in Portland has an umbrella, and it's raining a lot. And I was like, these people are awesome. Like they don't wear hoodies. It's not raining that hard, and everyone's just out in it. So I've always loved that about the Northwest. So, hey, let's say there was this great public space, and you could locate it anywhere in downtown on Commercial Avenue or close by, but between 12th and 3rd, where's a good spot? Maybe it's the heart of Anacortes. Maybe it's already here. Or maybe that's not a good spot, and don't dare put it in that location. The Pit. There's not a lot going on down there, but okay, let's explore it. I like it. And I know the depot is doing some work to expand that outdoor area around the depot, so I think that's a good one to explore too. Maybe we need more than one too, so let's don't be beholden to one location. Wait a minute, are we going to get rid of the post office? What? Nice. These are great. 7th between commercial and R. I'm kind of leaning in that direction myself. We've also been kind of dissecting, we love the first 40 feet up, the first 40 feet out. as we look at the first 40 feet out, we want to sort of look at the character of Commercial Avenue itself and how it's functioning. And it's pretty wide right-of-way, like between the buildings. And it's great. You've got ways to walk, you've got ways to bike, you've got on-street parking, which is so important for retail businesses. It's not a particularly busy street, which is great, which means it can be generally comfortable for people walking and biking and visitors coming to the street. And your sidewalks around 12 feet give enough room to do a variety of different things. But I think we're seeing a little bit of competition on the edges, because with the parklets and with benches and A-frame signs for businesses, and some businesses may have planters and some bringing retail out on the street, it can begin to get sort of condensed, and competition can evolve. So thinking about management of the street is probably a good idea. And I think, encouraging parklets, they've been really exciting. And to me, I'll say personally, being up near Rockfish during the open streets, and I know they're sort of building out from their storefronts, and they have seating out in the parking areas. It's kind of exciting. So I was pleased to see that. But I know that there's some issues in this competition for space, and so we need to think about that. Is there a good way to manage all the variety of uses that need to occur in the sidewalk area and in the parking areas, if those are transitioned to parklets and usable space for people? Some people don't mind the clutter. They love it. I just saw it popped up. And also too many parklets. So this is good. We have divergent views here. We've looked at the whole array, too, of not only street trees, benches, lighting, and I think it exists everywhere. If there's anything missing, it was trees on the north end and trees on the south end. So there are some gaps in a couple of blocks. There's been some discussion about the benches themselves. A lot of them are oriented next to the curb and they're facing the street versus facing the businesses. And so we're sort of curious, is like that the best placement of benches? And so we kind of want to explore that as an idea as well. And so this kind of gets into that management question, like how might we be sort of ensuring a variety of things can happen on the streetscape, but what should we sort of give some maybe added importance to? We want to keep it lively, we want to keep an open space where we can walk up and down cleanly. These are things that we can have discussions about and think about management of your great sidewalks. We're also curious about, as you're moving up and down the street, what are the things that sort of catch your fancy or you find as like being important and inviting? It could be the buildings, it could be great windows, it could be public art, signage. There's a variety of elements here that we're curious sort of what you feel are important in that streetscape environment. How do you feel most comfortable? Awnings are awesome. Canopies. Lighting I love. It's great to have lighting. Oh, traffic, pedestrian only. So I would be remiss if I didn't bring up parking. Obviously, I know that's important. And as we look at Commercial Avenue in particular and the side streets, there are a lot of opportunities to park on street. It's parallel along Commercial Avenue, but there's a lot of angled and a mix of angled and parallel on the side streets. And as we look at the inventory of parking that's available on the street, we see a mix of about 50%. As we look at all the parking in downtown, off-street parking lots, so those are private for businesses, and the on-street public parking, we're seeing about kind of a 50-50 ratio there. And that's pretty good. But as a visitor destination, you want to bump that 50% that's available to the public into that 60, 70 where you can. And that may mean doing some shared parking on off-street lots or thinking about ways where you can provide additional parking for folks who aren't using areas. And so that can be kind of a management strategy. But all in all, we're seeing really good distribution of parking up and down the street. Now, you may have other opinions about that. The other thing is thinking about parking management. And as we know, Snohomish is the city we're working in right now, and their historic downtown. And I couldn't believe at 8:30 in the morning, at least a third to almost 40% of the spaces were already full, and there weren't any people there yet, because the business owners and employees were in a lot of spots up and down the street, and everyone's complaining that there's no parking. So management is a good thing. 2 hours, or however you want to measure that, it keeps vehicles moving. 2 hours is a pretty good amount of time to eat food, do some shopping, and be on your way, and let the next person come in. So we're seeing some good things in terms of how you're managing parking as well. But we're always curious, like how easy it is generally for folks to find parking. Some folks feel there is a real problem. Others are like, I don't see a huge problem with it. Some of our favorite spots, obviously, it may be harder to find parking there, but and in Snohomish, they also claim that they can't parallel park in the community. So there can only be head-in parking anywhere, because it'll stop traffic if we go to parallel. So we're learning a lot about different communities and how parking works. What improvements might make parking more convenient? I joke that, boy, if Commercial Avenue could be valet only, that would be awesome. I can pull up around 11th or 3rd, and I just hand my key, away I go, I come back, and there we go. Here's my car. It's awesome. I don't know where the cars go, but it doesn't matter. It's like I'm on vacation. So the next piece is we're dissecting the street, we're dissecting public spaces, is looking at the buildings themselves. And so we did an inventory, sort of building frontage by building frontage, but what you start with is like, what are you doing really awesome? Like, what are these wow moments when we look at a building downtown? And some of them are the architectural features, because they are in that sort of historic arc of when a variety of different things were built over time. But some of the great things are, look at these ground floors, like awesome windows, transparency into the storefront. In some instances, there's awnings and canopies, so that comfort is above your head. Wall materials are of high quality. Just the assemblage of the storefront is really great. Signage is really high quality. And so we say, okay, this kind of looks like the perfect storefronts. Let's sort of look up and down the street at the array of buildings and see where we see a lot of wows, and maybe some places where there's like some things are good, there's really potential there, and maybe there's some opportunities to improve. And all this means is that you want to try and create that wow moment up and down the street, and things like storefront improvement programs and conversations with business owners. These are great opportunities to say, hey, how can we all create wow moments up and down the street? So it's not meant to be judgmental at all. It gives us a sense of where things, how things are coming together. And again, if you look at that 5th to 8th Street area, we really see just some amazing storefronts and investments in the downtown. There's a couple here in this image. But we're also curious too, like when you approach a building, what are the things that you're really most attuned to? Is it big windows and being able to see into the storefront? Is it great lighting? There's a variety of things that sort of captivate our attention and draw us to certain buildings or places. And it doesn't mean that your favorite spot, which might be the hole-in-the-wall bar, has no windows, but I still love going there. So the next piece is this connected, and we've heard about traffic going to the ferry and how accessible. Do people know about Commercial Avenue? And I think obviously living here, you do know. And those folks who are running to the ferry, yeah, maybe missing some opportunities to come to the street. But there's a variety of different ways that people come into downtown. And so as much as we want to look at sort of the visitor experience, there's a lot of other ways and other routes. and ways that you all choose or would like to come into downtown that we want to explore. And I'm always excited about what are sort of the key routes that people take from their home to downtown. It could be 7th, it could be 9th. Maybe you go down the street to go past the library so you can do something there and then hit Commercial Avenue. And so as we begin to learn sort of the pathways that you all tend to use on a regular basis, those can be areas where we start doing some sort of supercharged improvements, and we can focus some things that are improve walking and biking on those routes because they're great connections that you're already using today. We'd be remiss if we're not looking at the work that you're doing with your transportation system plan update. There's a website now where folks have been going to an interactive map and talking about some of the conditions that are challenging in terms of walking and biking in downtown. Some of those are visibility at intersections, or maybe lack of crosswalks, or stop signs or ways to have traffic stops so you can cross the street. We've saw a little bit about shift change bottlenecks up at the north around 3rd and 4th, and so we're paying attention to some of these hot spots and places that folks have indicated. And we've looked at the inventory of sort of where there's gaps in sidewalks or gaps in bike facilities that really encourage people to walk and bike. So we sort of map those, and we've mapped those with the routes where you're investing in good walk and bike, what we call active transportation. The dash routes are important from what we hear. The pink routes are the bike lanes that you have. The Tommy Thompson Trail is awesome. I think as we think about who walks and bikes, trails tend to be really the gateway drug to using bikes because it feels safe. And the city is investing in a number of improvements. So we want to acknowledge that these green areas are where bike routes are being signed, where bike lanes are being added, and of course the maybe potential multi-use path at Guimas Channel is another opportunity. And there's some safety improvements. So along Commercial Avenue and Q&R, number 1 there's going to be some improvements in terms of intersection enhancements, crosswalks, curb extensions, things of that nature, which slow traffic speed and improve connections. But I'm always curious of sort of where you all sit in the community in terms of your level of comfort on a bike in particular. There's been a number of studies that look at who are cyclists. Are they strong and fearless? Are they the enthused, confident, interested and concerned? But concerned tends to be the largest number of potential riders, and of course, no way, no how. Some people are like, I'm never going to get on a bike. But what we find is biking is most acceptable when people feel safe, and that's where bikes are separated from auto traffic. Bike lanes are not fun for a lot of us, but trails and things that are separated tend to be something we might try and want to do with friends and family. So we're just curious, as you're a pedestrian or a cyclist out on the street, what are conditions that sort of impact your comfort in walking or biking? Is it vehicle speed, traffic noise? And so this is sort of ranking from low vehicle speed's not a big deal to high number means, yeah, speed is kind of a concern for me. So I think visibility comes up a lot in every community we're at the intersections. Can people see me? Can I see them? Can vehicles see other vehicles coming into the street? And so intersections become really important locations for improvements. And we're getting close to the end here. I think it's 18, 19 questions, so we're almost done. Curious how desirable it is to walk and bike to downtown and in the waterfront destinations. Some of us are like, yeah, I walk and bike all the time. I love it. Others are like, yeah, I might if the right facilities are there. There may be certain streets I'll walk and bike down. And some folks are like, hey, I drive downtown and that's where I do my walking. And that's great. Or I prefer to drive to the front door. I do love being in a downtown area where there's a grid of streets and a lot of different things, because like on the weekend when I'm home, I can walk to a bunch of stuff and I don't have to drive the kids to this place and that place, and I love that day or two where I'm just out and about. So I am curious, sort of, if you're a walker or biker, what routes would you take to get to Commercial Avenue or the marina? It's 12th, so someone's driving. Got it. Really? Walk down 12th? All right. That's good. Coming from Old Town, does that mean like anything sort of the west of Commercial Avenue? Curious if that. All right, well, I'm going to be mapping these. This is awesome. Are there areas in particular in the downtown where you feel less comfortable walking or biking? Are there key intersections? Are there places that like, yeah, we need to fix this? Maybe we saw some of that on some of those local improvement maps that are potentially in the works to be fixed. Makes sense down at Safeway. And Commercial. The last question. What changes might encourage you to walk or bike more often downtown? Someone say sunshine? You've been really patient. I wish there was like a great slide at the end where you're like, woohoo. I've like kind of petered out to the end, but we're gonna open it up now to question and comments. And so this is a moment to take a breather. And if there's a pressing question you have or comments or things you want more information on, I'm happy to open that up so we can all hear that together. And then we're gonna break to the boards that you see around the room, and that allows you to have sort of deeper discussions with folks stationed at the boards about some of the questions we've been talking about tonight. So we have some information on those that might help in those discussions. I see a lot of you, as you came in, were giving some response to some of those boards, and we're excited to get that information. So I'll pause now. If anyone has a question, we have a microphone. We can bring it to you. And I want to thank you all for your patience with me today, and thank you for having us. Perfect.
Yeah, regarding mixing cars and bicycles, I never really understood why you would put the bike lanes on Commercial in Old Town. It just seems like an awkward place where you open your door and a bicycle just drives into it. Why can't they be on O or Q? And then why can't we, at least one side of Commercial, be angle parking? Not back end, but front end. So
Yeah,
that would be
I think
part of my solution.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Can you guys hear me okay with that microphone? I have an extra one right here. But wait, there's more.
So specifically about Commercial Avenue, so it's a state route, and so they literally dictate where those lines are striped down on the ground and the configuration of the road. They are required by state mandate to build in active transportation network. It's a state law, so any state route that goes through even an overlay, you are adding bike lanes and you are fixing ADA ramps and you're putting push buttons that are ADA compliant so people can hit the push buttons are what you hit to activate the crosswalks system. So that's the answer to that. Now the other ones were O and...
Yeah, because I've dealt with the state, and they at least to me, said that it's what the city wants to do when they put a route that goes right through the city. But you're speaking to bicycles?
The active transportation network, it's a new requirement in state law
Could
as
we
of
just
last year.
protest and give another idea?
You can call your legislator, yeah, have them change the law. We'd be happy to go with you then. The question is, what percentage of the population uses a bike? I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's a state law, so we cannot dictate what happens on a state route. And they tell. They don't do bicycle counts. It's literally any state route in the state of Washington. It does. It goes down to Oaks. It's not downtown, but you'd have bike lanes downtown.
I didn't mean to keep this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a gentleman over here by the wall too, if you want
Dual
to head over
microphones
that.
is
Thanks,
dangerous.
James. You can run that over. Coming back to the bike thing, some people do like to bike, and some of the issues are if you don't have the facilities that people feel most comfortable riding in, of course, they're not going to ride a bike. It's sort of like saying, nobody rides a bike here. Well, there's not a lot of ways to do that. So that's sometimes why you do those types of improvements. So.
Most bikes I've seen in this town are along 12 coming from the ferries. So why is there a bike lane along 12/Oaks?
Great question. Bike
So we
lane on
did submit
12th and
a
O.
$7 million project to the federal government to get funding to build that.
Well,
It's a multi-use path, but yeah, it's not cheap. The
The question was, the most bikes I have seen are from the ferry to downtown along Oaks/12. Why isn't there a sidewalk/bike lane along that highway?
oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, please.
while there was mentions of bike safety and things like that with safety in that regard, one thing I didn't see pop up in any of the questions, but I feel is extremely important to be noted for future reference is that the city has established, unless I'm completely missing it, that our downtown is safe, that the police or whoever is responsible has done a great job of obviously keeping it, because there's a lot of towns where people say, I'm not going downtown, it's just not safe. But I think the city, unless I've missed a lot of things, it's done a great job preventing that kind of stigma to stick to Anacortes. It's a safe place to go down.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
and I hope they keep it up. So.
Yeah, I think absolutely. This does feel like a safe place. I feel that way when I'm here, so I appreciate that.
Disagree. We like biking, but we go to Lopez or Guemas because there are so many. Oh, okay.
Oh, perfect.
We're bikers, so I disagree. There are a lot of bikers, but for safety, we go to Guemas or Lopez or San Juan because there's no dedicated bike trails, or the traffic is crazy here.
Sure.
So we love the Tommy Thompson Trail, but we want to go 20, 30 miles.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you just can't do that. There's no dedicated bike trails.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Yeah.
we like biking.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And if the facility's there, I like to use them too. It always seems like the bike lanes never quite connect to destinations. There's always a gap here and there, and we're switching from a trail onto the street. And so, but we can fill those gaps. I mean, being able to get to the gazebo, for instance, that could be a goal. We want to extend Tommy Thompson to the gazebo. Great.
I'd like to know why. Why we're developing Anacortes. What is the reasoning behind it?
Developing, can you be a little more specific?
Changing it.
Changing,
Why are you changing it? I mean, I don't understand what the purpose is. Is it the tourist? Is it for money? What's the
Yeah,
reason?
I think I was trying to allude to it. Like, we're seeing an awesome commercial avenue. It's a great destination. It's comfortable. People can walk up and down. It's an asset in the community. And you have a marina as well, and it's got great attributes. And you have places like the heart of Anacortes where cool things happen. But there's an opportunity to strengthen all those together, and the way you move from one space to another is really important. And making those intuitive and fun and pleasant, and making downtown not just a few parts, but like a complete thing that's well interconnected. That's kind of what we're looking at. So we're seeing a lot of great things in the downtown. For instance, maybe adding a few more businesses would be a good thing to target on the street. The creative arts districts, like, we have some great ideas of making art a really important aspect, and building that community, strengthening that community, giving them opportunities. These are potential changes, but there's people behind that are really excited about what those might bring to the street. So this is an opportunity to look at where those potential opportunities are. For instance, the port, if they're going to add an event center, that would be a great addition to a facility you used to have, now you don't have. And so as those pieces come back together, how do we make them all really work together? That's really the purpose of why we're here. So if I wasn't clear about that, I apologize. And maybe you still have some more questions about that.
So I've looked at a lot of downtown areas over the years, and the ones that were the most attractive had actually very narrow streets and lots of parking. And they kept the cars from going fast and made it easy to go slow because they were attractive. We have couplets, O and Q, or O and Q, that have lots of space for doing bicycle lanes. But the downtown, if we could get our cars slowed down to 15 miles an hour through downtown and put lots of parking for our retailers, I think there'd be a lot of happy people and a lot safer environment.
There's a number of hands coming up. Oh, you've got a microphone. Go ahead, and then we'll to the back, Andy. You'll see.
Have you analyzed the average age of the people in Anacortes? Do you evaluate that in your analysis? And a second question I have is, we have about 12 miles of coastline in Anacortes, and I'd like you to list all of the waterfront restaurants that we have.
We haven't done a deep dive into the demographics and age as a part of this effort. And then your next question was, can I name all the restaurants along the waterfront? And I can't, other than I know Anthony's is over on the marina. But is that the point? Thank you. Yes, I got that one. Yes, ma'am, please, in the blue.
What is the anticipated return on investment? I imagine this is going to cost a little bit, and we are a town that has a very busy summer season, winter not so much. We have a lot of big festivals, and the way it's set up now seems to be perfect. Everybody loves it. We have a great time. We have room for everybody. But this will cost us, and what do you anticipate the return on investment will be? Will we break even? Because if we don't, I don't think we should do it.
Great question. And this is something that's come up a lot as we've talked to some folks from city council and decision makers, that this isn't a plan that's creating an enormous price tag. We're not talking about tearing up the street from building edge to building edge for 10 blocks like downtown Vancouver's doing. This is about what are some strategic things we can do to improve conditions that will enhance the existing environment. So one way is looking at how we treat intersections. Things like curb extensions that don't have to be a major investment are things that we can introduce and plant a seed to begin some of that work. Thinking about some key connections, maybe it's 7th, maybe it's 9th. It may include intersection improvements. It may be looking at potentially bike facilities on that. It may be looking at some public gathering spaces that use street area as strategic locations to start building energy and expanding opportunities to gather on the street. So our charge is really to be strategic about the types of improvements we might be considering, but not to create a large price tag. So there's always effort in making some of those improvements, but much of it is kind of sweat equity, and it's not intended to create a laundry list of a $3, $5, $10 million project that, to your point, is to what return. The other part is this is an opportunity to, what I always talk about is to build partnerships so that folks who have skin in the game, the businesses on Commercial Avenue, people like the DAA, the Creative Arts District, these people are coming together for kind of a common purpose, that 3 to 5 things they see would add value to improvements on Commercial Avenue or connections to the marina, and that's what we want to dial into and try to find out what those things are as a result of this plan and give some direction and a common purpose for a variety of people who have skin in the game here, because it's your community. We're just sort of looking around and asking questions, but we're hoping to put something together that's meaningful. So, thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Ooh, that's very loud.
You're good.
I would love for you to talk a little bit about the perimeter areas. We talk a lot about that 3rd to 12th stretch on Commercial. We have, in my mind, I live in Old Town, so I live 4 blocks, so I walk downtown a lot on a lot of those. So Old Town's everything west of here.
Yes.
Until you run into water. It feels like there's a box basically around that where you have the high traffic, higher speed R that runs right into Dakota Creek, so it feels really industrial. Obviously, our ocean to the north, which represents this great maritime heritage, but feels like as a pedestrian, feels a little bit more off limits now than it used to be. To the west, O, which also feels like a not industrial, but also not somewhere you're hanging out. And then mostly Safeway at the end, that feels like the black hole of like anybody driving through there is putting their life in their hands. Walking through there is even worse. Maybe talking about like bridging that. I hear you saying a lot of really great things about connections. There's great things on all sides of those. Like how do you get over that box?
Sure. There's a couple variables. One is I think everyone's agreed that Commercial Avenue is the destination. And for a destination, you want people to get there and be comfortable and feel safe. So preeminently, you don't want to pump a bunch of traffic up and down Commercial Avenue. I think Commercial Avenue is a good place for bikes because I think some people want to bike into downtown, and if you've ever been a cyclist where your bike route is a block off where you're trying to get to, I don't always have the memory to remember where the heck my destination is. So I'm kind of guessing where that point is to come back to where I'm trying to get to. So making it super easy to come up and down Commercial Avenue, however you want to do it, is a good thing. Slowing traffic on that street is important, but then it means, okay, what are critical vehicles that need to move north and south through town to get to the port or to get to other locations? And so these adjacent streets are going to have to take on some of those functions. It could be A or O becomes more of a through route, and the things that you can do to help manage that is having like places where cars stop at intersections so people can move through those Old Town neighborhoods to get across that kind of busy street. And so there's things you can do to try to manage that flow there, knowing you need to accommodate maybe trucks or a little bit more traffic capacity because there has to be a way to get through. And vice versa, it's also looking at R, which is another parallel street, to see what are the levers you can dial there to manage some of that traffic flow. But the point of these key east-west connections, those are opportunities to focus your efforts. We could have a laundry list of, let's say, 15 intersections that need improving, but if we found 4 or 5 that are really singing, that routes that people are using, that allows us to see how successful we can be at that, and then we can advance on to other places. So I think trying to find those really important east-west connections and how we navigate across O to get to Commercial, how we navigate across R to get to Commercial, and vice versa to the marina neighborhoods. So we're going to look at that, and yeah, it's going to be kind of strategic in a few locations, and it won't solve every problem, but we're hoping it's like pushing the needle forward.
I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and the summer was kind of a starting point of them having freedom on their bikes.
Yeah.
Which is also a little scary as a parent.
It's a panic
Okay,
moment,
off
for
you
sure.
go. But they are so excited about this freedom and the thought of them safely being able to get from like school or from a friend's house into town is really, really exciting. And I know my family and many families that live around us would absolutely ride into town so much more often if there was a safe passage for us to get there. I mean, the boys already want to go to school every day and just can't get there safely. So having that available to them would be amazing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, me too. I'm teaching my kids how to be better riders because my son just beelines it through the intersection. It's not fun, but he's getting better. So, do you have a question or comment?
No. I have a comment.
Great.
I'm not necessarily a cyclist, maybe a part-time hobbyist, but I do have a business that sits on the corner of 11th and Q, right at the entrance to the marina. Also the starting point or the finishing point, I guess, or the turnaround point of the Tommy Thompson Trail. I speak to a lot of people and a lot of cyclists. And what I can tell you, because there's so much conversation about cyclists right now, is a lot of people use the Tommy Thompson Trail because it's lovely and wonderful. A lot of people come from the campground, Fidalgo Bay RV Park, ride along. It's a connector to get into downtown. It's fantastic. Other people park their cars down at the port and they go for a out and back across the trestle and back. Really great. I'm curious about the decision to put a bike lane on commercial, or sorry, not on commercial, but on 12th Street and going out that way, because if you ride a bike and if you've ever ridden along 12th Street with the traffic that's zipping along coming in and out of the ferry, I'm sure you don't want your kids riding along 12th Street. So to spend, X millions of dollars on it there kind of, confounds me a little bit. And the reason for that is there's already State Route 10 that runs from eastern Washington all the way over the Cascades, connects up to the other side of the Tommy Thompson to the trestle, comes along, goes downtown, and actually extends beyond 11th and Q and goes down to 8th Street, and then goes all the way out 8th Street as far as you can go to about Lovericks, and then in a weird way it crosses over Oaks Avenue there and goes up into Copper Pond, and you go along, and then you drop down to get to the ferry terminal. I could see a little stretch being maybe from the Lovericks area along to the ferry terminal, so people don't have to ride up that hill and wind all around. It adds about another 30, 40 minutes to your ride to get to the terminal. But to run a bike lane and spend millions of dollars on 12th Street, I would have questions in that regard. And again, I'm not a cyclist, so it's not the highest on my priority list, but I've spoken to a lot of cyclists, and they tell me they avoid that. They use Bike Route 10, and just out of curiosity, I called both the bike shops here in town and asked them, what do they do, and what do they tell their people that come to town how to get there?
Here's a good route.
They tell them there's a good route, and you go down to 8th Street, and you go all the way out, and they give them the option at Lovericks to go the long way up the hill and go down and cut across to get to the ferry, or to just, chance it along Oaks Avenue, out where at least the traffic's not quite so dense as it is coming right into town. So that's something to consider. And there's also a connector on 14th Street on the other side of commercial 2 that's a city bike route. So I would only suggest looking at the bike routes that are in place currently that seem to be fairly well thought out, low traffic volume, low risk. I mean, I'm not having my 15-year-old ride along Oak Street.
Not down 12.
I'll tell you that much. But that's my only comment, just because there's a lot of talk about cyclists right now. So I would take a look at that.
Yeah.
So we do
Appreciate
want to
that.
wrap it up. We do have a council member that has the closing comment, maybe perhaps.
Thank you. So biking, I grew up biking here. I learned how to ride on the street in Wenatchee. My dad had a bike shop for 25 years, and I mean, him and his buddies, there's like a dozen of them, they ride multiple times a week all over Anacortes, Skagit County, the islands, and everything like that. And I think they would say that they absolutely love it. But what I want to talk about was, I'm curious how the first 40 feet and this downtown core that you've identified, those parameters. You know, I'm 40 now. When I was in my 20s, there was a nightlife here. There were things to do. I now have kids that are in early elementary. We go to dinner. We let them, if it's open, go get ice cream on their own and cross the street because they know how to do that. How do we utilize this, your expertise, to create a downtown that extends those hours and allows a variety of ages to enjoy and encourage businesses to come alive? I was kind of curious if you have any insight to that.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation about being open on Sunday, maybe that's what you're referring to, or just extending
like
hours,
8 p.m.
or
8 p.m. on a Thursday or Friday or Saturday. I mean, we used to go to Ghirardelli and then do the art walk, and we'd be out till 9 p.m. But now there isn't the music venues and things like that. And I know that Buxton's and the Down Creative District are working on that, but there used to be just more bars. I was the one who said, like, you know, the seedy, gritty. It would be nice to have a little of that. And I'm probably in the minority here, but I will say that, like, yeah, I want my kids to be able to have a little freedom too and be able to walk, but also know that it's not just for them.
Right. And it's what we've heard from some folks who aren't open on Sunday is like, look, I'm working 6 days a week as it is. It's just one day. I need that one day for our sanity. We can't just like crank it out over and over, or be able to hire staff to do that. I think, trying to encourage being open on Sunday or being open later, those are great aspirations, but you sort of have to find the folks who are willing and kind of ready to do that. And maybe as customers, like, encourage them and be a person saying, like, I would totally, can you stay open till 9? Or who knows? And I think those conversations, I know, the DAA and others are going to be trying to encourage that, but you know how it is. Like, we're all sort of like maxed out sometimes, and we'd love to tell people, you need to stay open, or, switch Monday to Sunday, but it's going to take time.
Is there the environment, right, the actual physical space that would encourage that to happen from your expertise with other cities? Like, is it that main square or what?
It could. What we see is when you get a few businesses who sort of choose to stay open and they're sort of close to each other, everyone knows, oh, that's a spot. I know I can get food after 8 o'clock. I don't have to panic. Like, I know there's 1 or 2 spots where I can do that. And it's sort of finding those. It could be encouraging a new business to the street who's like, heck yeah, I'm going to be open on Sunday. I'm actually seeing that as an opportunity. And just as you're recruiting or potentially bringing people, talking about those things, like, boy, if you're open on Sunday, you're going to kill it. Like, you're going to be the only person there. And so it's sort of like helping people understand how things are working and see if you can encourage that. But I wish I had a silver bullet, but I'm all out. I used them all.
So we do want to wrap it up, but you can ask us your question afterwards. We'll be here still. We'll be mingling around. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate your time and your input into this. We can't do this without you. So thank you for taking your time and missing the Mariners game with us.
Thank you. Thanks.